Lately my thoughts got me distant. Darker days filling up darker minds. Stuck in this room that keeps spinning, wondering how you been, where you hide. Late night drinking, wishful thinking, what if you were here? Morning waking, heart still aching, something about the way you make me feel. I don't wanna mess up your night, I don't wanna put up a fight, I don't wanna trouble you, babe, but I gotta say, I don't wanna waste no more time trying to shake the feelings inside.
Well, first of all, listen, it's interesting about all these young guys today. They never call on us and say, hey, thanks for the kind word and telling me how great a player I am. But when they play like crap and we call them out, we don't know what we're talking about. Listen, I'm easy to find.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your host, Nathan Snell with Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. I hope you are all having a wonderful evening. I hope everybody had a great day today. Happy Monday. Hope everybody had a great first day of school. Hope work was great. Hope your weekend was great. It's a new week. August is almost over. September is literally Thursday, and then before you know it, we'll be within it'll be fall season. Before we get into the video, there's a few things I'd like to say up front. Excuse me. A little later, I'm going to record the Washington Commanders 53-man roster predictions for episode 10. Episodes 11 and 12, that will be what the Baltimore Orioles, episode 11, why I feel like they've been successful this year. And then Maryland football preview, what the season's going to look like for my Maryland Terrapins. That'd be episode 12. Still going to continue with the WNBA coverage for the playoffs. Still waiting with the Washington Mystics. That video has been just put on hold until Coach T has his media availability call, which that could be sometime this week. It could be next week. I don't know. So when you see that video, you'll see it. What else is happening on the pipe? Maryland college basketball. That's also down the pipe as well. So look at the schedules, break those down, and we'll take it from there. But and then baseball, we got one more. We got technically a month left before the playoffs. So be tuned in. We're going to have some playoff coverage as well. Trying to really keep up with everything as best I can, ladies and gentlemen. So just be tuned in for that. As you see in the title of this video, it's episode 9, season 10. We are predicting the 53-man roster for the Baltimore Ravens. And before we start with that, Tony Jefferson was cut today.
What kind of shit is that?
I feel as though he will be back on the roster. But again, most likely a handshake deal. So somebody will go on the IR or somebody will be cut. I feel like he will be back. Tony Jefferson definitely is a guy who is a veteran, who brings leadership. And particularly with last season, the way that was, you want a guy like that in your locker room. So I do expect him to be back on this roster at some point before week 1, which I'm hoping it is soon. So because he's definitely respected and valued with the Baltimore Orioles. He most likely could be with the practice squad. That's about it. And as far as any other cuts, Jimmy Murray was cut, and then Cameron Dicker was cut as well. So those are really the only 3 cuts. But let's painfully get into the meat and potato. Oh my gosh. It's been a long day, ladies and gentlemen. I can't talk. I apologize. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of what this potential Baltimore Raven 2022 roster looks like. We're going to start with quarterbacks. LT. These are my two quarterbacks. I really tried to. It was hard to really have three quarterbacks here. I feel like Anthony Brown has definitely proven his worth. He definitely he's definitely brought some value. I could see a team making a trade for him, but I feel like most likely he'll go to the practice squad. We all know what Tyler Huntley, brings. I thought he did a good job stepping up last season when Lamar went down with his injury. And we all know LJ8. We know he's going to be the number one guy. So I mean, this was really a no-brainer. Now, with the running back, fullback position, I stick with the go-tos: J.K. Dobbins, Mike Davis, Tyler Beatty, Justice Hill, and Patrick Ricard. Now, Gus Edwards is on the physically unable to perform list, which puts a damper on things because I don't know when Gus Edwards will be back. J.K. Dobbins did come back to practice, but he has not been consistent, and he has not participated on the team drills, according to what Coach Harbaugh said. So we've got 2 weeks until week 1. I feel like he will not be ready for week 1, in my opinion. I think what they're going to do, I think they're going to slowly implement him in the offense because you've got Mike Davis, who I think is a good pickup for the Ravens, and you got Justice Hill, who I think really proved that he still wants it. He still belongs in this team, and we all know Patrick Ricard. It's Patrick Ricard. No doubt about that. I like Ben Mason. If I had to say, Ben Mason will most likely be on the practice squad. So the next position, which everybody loves, is the wide receiver position, and I just stuck with 5. Rashard Bateman, Devin Duvernay, James Poche II, Demarcus Robinson, and Mr. Tylan Wallace. Now, because of Mr. Poche's injury, that opens the door. Excuse me while I get some water. Better. That opens the door for others. Malachi Polk, Benjamin Victor, Riley Webb, and Shamar Bridges. Because of Demarcus Robinson's the addition of Demarcus Robinson, that put a damper on some things, and we all know he's going to make the team. And you could make a case to say those guys could be practice squad, going to the practice squad, but one of them could be on that main roster if Poche goes to the IR, because we still don't know the severity of his injury. If I had to pick, Shamar Bridges. I think Baltimore needs to really value height at the receiver position, and I think he's definitely shown some flashes, and that's who I would have replacing Poche if he went on the IR. Tight ends, this was a no-brainer. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Nick Boyle, and Mr. Charlie Collier, who I hope is doing well after getting a surgery on his sports hernia. Hope he is doing well. Nick Boyle was the only one that stood out the most that could be potential that I saw that could be cut. But I see Baltimore keeping him on the roster and utilizing him, particularly with the run blocking, and definitely could actually be that mentor for Isaiah Likely and Charlie Collier. If you push me with Josh Oliver or Tony Pajan, no. I thought Josh Oliver would have took that step forward last year, and I didn't see that. I really didn't. It was really, I felt like I'm comfortable with these 4 as my tight ends. I don't see Baltimore keeping 5. I think that's ridiculous. I think these 4, it's a deep tight end room, and I think these 4 fit the offense. So I'm not worried about these four. These four, I think, will do great things. Now, before we get into the offensive line, Mr. Ronnie Stanley's off the pup list, baby. That's right. So this is my offensive line. Again, I value offensive line. I had 10. Tristan Colon was the odd man out, unfortunately. I like Tristan. It's just that I think they're comfortable with what they got. I this is a talented offensive line group, and I feel like particularly how they looked last year, and particularly the injuries they suffered at each position, practically where you had left tackle, center, this injuries except Kevin Zeitler, it really was was a mess. Ben Powers, I feel like he did a good job, particularly in the preseason. I know he got the night off against the Commanders, but Ben Cleveland did not. He came into camp in shape. He came out of shape. Excuse me. I mean, he failed a couple conditioning tests at the beginning of the year, and then he missed the final couple practices before the preseason game because of an injury. Again, Baltimore won't cut him, but yeah, I think that's why I think Ben Powers would be the starting left guard week 1, in my opinion. Because if I had to pick, if I had to say what your offensive line is, you're going to have Ronnie, Ben, Tyler, Kevin, and then Morgan Moses. And then Jawan James, Fale, Tyree Phillips, and Ben Cleveland. That's how that's my starting 5, and that's my depth behind that starting 5. So I think this is a good offensive line group. My only concern is with this Ronnie Stanley, making sure that he comes back. I don't think he'll be ready for week 1. I'm not opposed to having Jawan James playing left tackle, but if it needs be, it needs be. So I'm just really happy to see Ronnie Stanley off the IR, off the physically unable to perform list. So let's go to the defense. This was actually interesting. Now, same thing. I had Mr. Brent Urban making the team. What has to happen first is that Charlie Collier who will probably go on the IR, David Ajobo, who will be on the IR, and then we don't know if Kavon Seymour will be cut or not, and then he'll be back. But this was definitely defensive line was for the Ravens. This is probably arguably one of the most deepest groups I've seen past couple years, and Isaiah Mack, you can make a case for him. Aaron Crawford, we don't know the extent of his injury, so that'll hurt them. I can see Isaiah Mack being on the practice squad, honestly. If you pushed me, that's how I kind of see it. But I mean, Calais Campbell, Michael Pierce, Justin Matabuke, Travis Jones, Bordick Washington, those are going to be your guys for sure. Now, your linebacking core, couple things I took in consideration here. I'm all about trying to keep a young team intact. I feel like if you sign veterans, make sure that they're veterans that can definitely mentor guys. And I feel like Mr. Josh Burns can definitely do that. Christian Welsh was the unfortunate odd man out, and David Ajobo, who will be on the IR. Steven Means, he definitely proved his worth to being on this team for sure. Again, if you pushed me, Christian Welsh could have made the team. It was really, really hard to really look at. It was, I ain't gonna lie, but for the linebackers, this was a really tough decision. And again, like looking at this looking at this core, like Josh Ross, I say he beat out Christian Welsh because Christian Welsh is a special teams player, but he's not a defensive linebacker like Josh Ross is. And I think with Josh's strong coverage abilities, I think he's shown. I think that's what Baltimore's looking for. And yes, he was also under Mike McDonald last year at Michigan. So, but I can see Josh Bynes being cut. I don't see it because I know Baltimore really values veterans, and that this I ain't gonna lie, this one's tough. But Steven Means, he definitely proved his worth as a veteran, and we'll see how he looks for sure because he's going to take David Ajabu's place for now until David comes back next year. So corners, I've seen a lot of reactions on Twitter, particularly wanting Mr. Kevon Seymour off the Ravens, and I can understand that. And to make everybody feel better, my corners were Marlon Humphreys, Marcus Peters, Kyle Fuller, Brendan Stevens, Jalen Armour Davis, and Damiron Pepe Williams. Again, don't know what Kevon Seymour's injury status is as of right now. Harbaugh said after the postgame he's hopeful that he avoids a significant injury, but I can see him being a potential roster cut. I'm just more comfortable with 6 corners. I mean, Baltimore looks like they're going to keep 7, but a Darius Washington, to me, for example, or somebody that I think that's young and they can bring in, because we don't know the extent of his injury. We don't know how long he's going to be out. And with last year, I can tell you one thing, that they're not patient with the injuries, in my opinion, I will say. So could he come back? Maybe. Would I be surprised? No. But for the most part, when you look at their roster, when you look at majority of this preseason, I think which stood out the most was that most of our starters weren't played, because if you looked throughout the entire NFL, you had, example, TJ Watt getting hurt. You had Kevon Thibodeau, who I thought it was a dirty low block. He suffered a knee injury. He only had his sprained MCL, but still, Zach Wilson. I mean, like, I just don't. We shouldn't be going that hard in preseason, but I get it and I understand it. So the Ravens, if we look at it for this season, this preseason, they did have some injuries, but they weren't season injuries. And I feel like credit that to, I think what Harbaugh said it after last year, they were going to change some things up in terms of practicing, conditioning, different things like that, and kind of just changing up the regiments, especially with the team. As far as safeties go, this was a no-brainer. Again, painfully, Tony Jefferson was cut, and I can see him coming back. Chuck Clark did request a trade because he felt like with the additions of Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams, he kind of felt like the odd man out. And I think Chuck Clark's going to have I think he's going to prove to Eric DeCosta and the front office that y'all made a mistake signing these guys. Like, I'm the guy, and I'll be fair. Like, you got your money, and you kind of disappointed. in some ways, but I think he'll have a good year. Geno Stone probably will be on the practice squad. We all know Kyle Hamilton will most likely be the number 2 guy. And then Marcus Williams, we know he's going to be the guy. So, but if you look from last year, they completely revamped the safety position, and I think with this core right now, I think it looks good. Honestly, if you do bring back Tony Jefferson, I think it's even a little bit better. So I'm kind of curious to see how it'll work out. I'm pretty sure they're going to bring him back on a handshake deal, just to really just make sure that Geno Stone and Darius Washington, young guys, are on this roster. And then, without a shadow of a doubt, a no-brainer, you got the GOAT, JT, the rookie, Jordan Stout, and Mr. Nick Moore. What is there to say? It's just nothing. We know Mr. Jordan Stout, this is his rookie year. There's definitely going to be some big shoes to fill now that Mr. Sam Cook is now retired. And this is Nick Moore's second year season. This will be a second full-time season as the long snapper for Baltimore. So I'm not surprised at all. So that's who I think most likely make the 53-man roster. I have some questions with the linebacking. I feel like they'll keep Josh Bynes, but it wouldn't faze me if Christian Welsh was still on the team. Brent Urban will most likely be cut and then signed again. If I had to push it, especially with running backs, I think that running back core is fair. I don't see anybody else. I mean, we don't know when Gus Edwards. I don't know when he'll be back when he come off the PUP list. And then J.K. Dobbins, you don't want to rush him back. My receiving core, I could probably put a 6th wide receiver here, but somebody offensively would have to go. And I'm comfortable with these 5. Like I said, Poche, we don't know the severity of his injury. Will he have to go on the IR? And like I said earlier, Polk, Victor, Bridges, those guys, those are potential replacements for Poche, one of them, and the rest could be practice squad. So for the most part, I'm confident with this Baltimore Ravens roster. I actually predict the Baltimore Ravens to win 12 games this year. I do see some chemistry issues, particularly the fact that Lamar is going to he didn't play any preseason games. So even though you build that the chemistry in practice, I like to see what that looks like. At least a couple possessions, but I understand it. My expectations for this year, I'm just taking it one game at a time. I'm going to trust my eyes and evaluate each possession, each quarter, each game, just one game at a time. My expectations are neutral. I'm not expecting great things, but I'm not expecting bad things. I'm just keeping it right now as weeks progress. I'm just taking one game at a time. That's my approach to the season. Last season was very, very hard to watch, particularly just down the stretch to end the season on a 6-game losing streak and to miss the playoffs.
I mean, this is some bad stuff. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how much more of this I can take. I just don't know. This is ridiculous. Oh, Lord.
And on top of that, too, with Lamar Jackson's contract, with all due respect, I'm not an advisor, and I'm not going to talk about another man's pockets. I believe that they'll get a deal done. I'm confident in that. And that's all I'm going to say on that note. As far as this team, I think this team depth-wise is built better. When you looked at last year, I mean, you just bringing guys off the street, and in 3 last year was fool's gold. I'm just going to keep it real as a Raven fan. It was fool's gold. It honestly didn't mean anything because when it counted the most, we just weren't good. That's the best way I can put it. And I think this offseason, and I kind of look at like the Washington Mystics, for example. It's resetting the culture, how you go about things, and making sure you have the right personnel, and also too making sure that rebuilding a healthy roster that has depth and it can compete for a championship. I think those are things Eric DeCosta, John Harbaugh, and the Ravens have done this offseason, and I think it's going to come together well. I have no concerns. The biggest thing is making sure everybody stays healthy. Ronnie Stanley, you don't want to rush J.K. Dobbins back. Now the offenses will look a little different because now you're high number 1 wide receiver is now in Arizona, and now your number 2 wide receiver, this is his second year, so obviously development's still there. Then you got Tyron Wallace. So right now, most likely Demarcus Robinson will be your number 1 wide receiver, then Bateman your number 2, and then potentially Duvernay in the slot, Poche at the 4, and then Wallace at the 5. That's how I kind of see the offense, those 5 guys. We all know that Mark Andrews is going to do Mark Andrew things. We know that Isaiah Likely most likely could be a potential candidate rookie of the year. I'm going to go ahead and guarantee that. Where's my clip?
Guarantee.
And we all know Nick Boyle. We know he's more for a run blocker for sure. So those are the things that I noticed this offseason, and I'm really confident with this roster, as I stated. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Ladies and gentlemen, be tuned in for future episodes. Like I said, the Washington Commanders 53-man roster, that'll be coming soon. Be tuned in for that. As I stated, be tuned in for the other episodes, as I said in the introduction. Yes, it's going to be a very, very interesting few weeks. Football is upon us. I cannot wait. Sadly, the WNBA basketball will be coming to a close, and still got football, got baseball playoff, still got 1 month of baseball, then you got playoffs, and then sooner or later, the NBA will be here. So Washington Wizards, yay. But my closing message is a couple things. Check on friends, check on loved ones, but also to make sure you take time for yourself. We're all human. We go through different things. And most important thing is self-care, self-healing, and making sure that you're okay. If you're not okay, then how can you be okay for others? Make sure you take care of yourself before you take care of others. I think that's the most important thing that we have to be reminded of, because you as an individual come first, and you should put yourself first. And make sure that you're doing all the right things to make sure you're taking care of yourself, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. You make sure you do those things. So that's my closing message. With that being said, please like, comment, subscribe. I will catch you guys on the flip side. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good night. I'm out. Peace. Stay up.
Well, first of all, listen, it's interesting about all these young guys today. They never call on us and say, hey, thanks for the kind word and tell me how great a player I am. But when they play like crap and we call them out, we don't know what we're talking about. Listen, I'm easy to find. But I get sick of these guys complaining. These young guys, they never call us and say, when a coach is wrong, I'm going to call him out. But when players are wrong, I'm going to call them out. Thanks for the kind words. But listen, I'm going to criticize guys that they deserve it. And listen, they can kiss my ass if they don't like it.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to Big Nate Sports Talk. If you enjoyed that episode and you want to see more content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Bring your sports game on Big Nate Sports Talk.
Living for weekends, wishing I could take a break from this world. Running on a hamster wheel, but searching for something I can't feel.